Good morning.
Oh, yeah, I knew. I knew that'd come out. I knew. Good morning.
Gentlemen.
Now, Derryn Hinch, we are talking about memoirs, the Memoirs Foundation, our stories, your story. You're from New Zealand. What was your background, your father's background?
Look, the weirdest thing, my father was a jack of all trades. He was a milkman at one. He drove buses for years. He drove taxis for a long time. He met my mother driving taxis. She was a waitress. He was a taxi driver. And he used to tell me a story about how when he'd drive her home after he'd pick her up after work, he'd drive her home, but of course he wasn't allowed to in the taxi, so he'd drive her home, and then he'd drive all the way back to the depot backwards to unwind the speedo. Because in those days the speedo were fairly basic things, and it would wind it backwards. He'd drive all the way. He'd drive her mum home to where she lived, and then he'd drive all the way back to the depot in reverse. And then he drove taxis for years, drove buses for many, many years up and down the North Island, and then he got himself a milk run. And when I was a kid, I used to work on the milk run with him over weekends. Get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go and deliver milk around the place, because in those days milk was all delivered at home overnight. So when you wake up in the morning, your milk was there. Then he owned a grocery store and a milk bar, and kids would work there at night and on the weekends, etc., etc. But the thing I remember most about, the thing was, one good thing about newspapers, and it got me into newspapers, I suppose, in a funny way. When I was a young kid, I used to just compete with my father to get hold of the newspaper every afternoon, the Taranaki Herald, and so you got to read it first, because Dad always meant to read the paper first, you know. But I always try and get a piece of it, and ironically, a few years later, I started my first job was working on the Taranaki Herald, circulation about 11,000 in the small town of New Plymouth, New Zealand.
Where was your love of journalism? Where did that come about? Did you have an uncle, or was Dad fluent in writing?
No. My mother was probably brighter than my dad was in terms of English. But I just found at school I was lousy at most subjects, loathed things like science and maths, and I spent a whole year of trigonometry at high school, and by the end of it, couldn't tell you one thing what it was about. I had no idea. Didn't know then, don't know now. For $1 million, I couldn't do it. Answer a trigonometry puzzle. But I'd always rate very well in English. I'd get, for essays and things, I'd always get like 99, 95, 90, 93 in English. And I'll tell you a funny story, show you how old, when I was about 15, I suppose, 14, just before I left school. And Sabrina came to New Zealand.
Yes.
That's before she did the Castrol ad.
That's right.
Castrol ad you now see on television. And Sabrina came to New Zealand, and now I was 15, and I wrote an article we had to write some sort of essay, pick anything you like. So I wrote a essay about Sabrina. I hadn't seen her or met her. I knew her from the pictures in the newspapers. And so I wrote my intro. I still remember it. My intro said, "She came, they saw, she's contoured."
Very clever.
And believe it, I was 15, and 7 years later, I was working in Canada as a journalist, and met Sabrina and we took her to dinner, had a slight little involvement.
A little.
All those years ago. Just remembered that.
A bit more than just an interview.
It was a bit more than an interview, yes.
Yeah.
She used to go on stage. She was doing some of those bedroom farces, which she ended up doing on stage. Where you always tell it's a farce. You count the number of doors on stage.
That's
There's
right.
15 doors, you know it's a farce.
Yes.
But she was so well endowed, and she was running around with bra and knickers on the stage, I hasten to add, and she had a metal brace down her back because just to keep her upright.
Well, of course you'd have to.
So it was quite extraordinary.
Because that weight would weigh her right down.
You would think so. But when I was talking about you guys talking about childhood, I realised we're all lucky to be alive now. I mean, I suppose I had a lot of time to think about death last year when I nearly carked it, but I'm amazed we didn't cark it when we were children. I mean, we used to play a game when I was a kid. We'd stand at opposite ends of the lawn. My neighbours had a big lawn, and you'd fire bows and arrows at each other.
That's right.
You know, you'd playing cowboys. You stand there. I got hit in the head with an arrow, a little bamboo arrow, stuck in the back of the head. We all made billy carts, and I was really thrilled because I managed to salvage a pair of four real pram wheels.
Oh, yes.
And so they had rubber on them. So instead of those little metal things, I had these big, on the back, I only got two of them rather, the back wheels were these big pram wheels with rubber. And then you'd get in these bloody billy carts, and of course you go to the top of the hill, you'd roar down the hill, you couldn't stop, go straight across the intersection.
Yes.
Wouldn't think twice about cars or anything, you just barrel on, could bowl some old lady over, you didn't know, didn't care. We had another thing, we developed stunt bikes, and you got your normal handlebars, and you got a piece of piping, and bent that up to make sort of stunt bike handles, you know, like they do now on motorbikes.
Yes.
And then you'd pedal like crazy up the hill, and then roar over the side of it, and you'd be in flight for about 15 feet, because before you hit the other side. I came down so hard on the front wheel one day, that I broke my wrist. Actually broke a bone in my hand.
Oh.
So we do all these things, you know. We had a game called Siege of Mafeking.
I remember that.
Siege of Mafeking was you'd have a stick or pretend to be a flag, and you'd plant it at the top of the sand hills, and there'd be one team at the top and one team at the bottom. As they came racing up, you'd do all you could to hurl them back down the hill again.
Yeah.
We should all be killed. I mean, you dig out the side of a hill in the sand, and you'd have those. Sometimes we hadn't had cave-ins where kids got suffocated.
Yes.
And we never thought twice. So that's my bright note for the thing about how many. I was just sitting here thinking how many times we nearly could have carked it when we were children. Of course, you went off on your bike every weekend. You'd go down to the beach. You'd go around the rocks where the waves were. You didn't care about the waves coming in. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, we were fearless. How much was your first pay packet for that first story you wrote?
My first pay packet when I was on the Taranaki Herald would have been it was about 30 shillings. So what's that?
About $3 maybe, yes.
So $3. You got an extra 50 cents for working on the sports edition, for working Saturday night.
So what about the electronic media? So did you wane, the interest in writing waned, and you thought...
No, it still hasn't. I mean, writing's still my great passion.
Right.
I mean, I spent all day today and tonight just going through the final edits on my book, which comes out in October.
Right.
I'll tell you what, I can tell you the headline, the title for it now. It's called The Human Deadline.
All right.
That's called A Human Deadline.
Yeah, that's all right. That's good. As opposed to the human headline.
Yeah, A Human Deadline. Because I had a pretty good deadline last year, and this is thank God it's the only deadline I didn't meet.
Now, Derryn, yes, that's right.
So radio started out, Bruce, because I was based in New York doing for newspapers, and I had an idea that I wouldn't mind just doing some broadcasts back to Australia. I convinced then news director 2GB Brian White, who became our boss later on.
Yeah.
Convinced him that, look, I'm travelling around America at Fairfax's expense. Nothing changes. So while I'm there for the newspapers, why don't I call you up and do a news story? And so that's what I did, and they liked it. And within about a month of my starting to do that, that was in early '69. Suddenly you had the moonshot coming up, and so my first major live broadcast ever on radio was that launch of the moonshot of men going to the moon.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Now, when's that musical coming out, Derryn?
It comes out, well, it's coming out at Crown. We were going to bring it out in January, but we've now locked in. It'll be on at Crown for the iFantasia. We'll be there for the April school holidays.
And what is it called?
It's called iFantasia. With a small I, capital F. iFantasia. It's about a modern love story that, in this space age world we live in.
Right, sounds
so
good.
A good gossip for you. I was at Crown last night.
Oh, how was it?
I had to go to Sydney yesterday to do a TV interview. Actually, for TV New Zealand, they're doing a story on where are they now and supposedly successful New Zealanders. And I suddenly realised I had to go to Harold Mitchell's party last night, so I took the 9 o'clock flight to Sydney, did an interview up there for an hour and a bit, got on a 3 o'clock flight back, and then went to Harold's party. I think the biggest problem they had for the party was trying to get clearance to land all the private jets at Essendon and Tullamarine. True.
Well, who was there? Name drop, please.
Name drop. Frank Lowy, Lachlan Murdoch, James Packer, Ron and Barbara Walker, Hinch got a Guernsey. I was sitting on the same table as Christine Nixon.
That
bit tense.
Bit testy?
Bit testy. Bert was the MC.
How did it go? Was he good?
Very good. Rhonda Birchmore was stunning.
Yes.
She didn't jump out of a cake, but she stepped out of a cake. The cake just broke in half, and out Rhonda came.
Yeah.
Legs 11, and did Big Spender, sang Big Spender. And I tell you, if a bomber dropped on Crown last night, it would have wiped out the Australian economy.
That's funny.
I mean, the billionaires and millionaires, and it was but it was a great party, good food. And we kicked on up to Club 23 afterwards, and I got home about Chanel and I got home about 2:30.
How do you go with the drinking? Is there a bit of a temptation to have a couple, or you're very strong?
Never. The good thing is I can sit back and watch everybody else making fools of themselves. Which I used to be capable of and did. No, I've never. It's 6 years now, and I've never craved it. And I take my own bottles of non-alcoholic wine along, and the waiters serve me as they know me now. They serve me as if it were wine. You wouldn't around the table probably think, oh, there's Hinch with his new liver, back on the piss again. But it's not. It's totally non-alcoholic, because I had a bottle of it here when I was under house arrest, and I got one of those knock on the doors at 9 o'clock at night for a surprise breath test, which they did, and when there's a title to do, and they came in, they breath tested me, and it rated 0.00000.
Of course, that's not
even though it said on the label it's got some 0.05 or something, because it could have there's nothing. So it was good. It was a good party.
He's a nice fellow, Harold Mitchell. I like
him. He is indeed, and he started with nothing. Became one of the most powerful people in television. He's only half the man he used to be, of course.
Oh, he's lost a lot of weight.
I think he lost 60 kilos or something.
Yeah, so what do you give the man who has everything as a birthday gift?
It's beautiful. He said no presents, please, at all.
Yes.
And we all will make donations to the Harold Mitchell Foundation.
Good. That's lovely.
Which is truly also helps Indigenous people, also helps the arts, because he's a great patron of the arts, and that's good. I mean, it's silly to give presents like that.
It's silly. Derryn, thank you for tonight. I really appreciate you spending time with us.
All right, now listen, don't be anybody scared tomorrow. I'm not on air tomorrow.
Oh, what's doing?
Because I'm just going to go to bed now, because I've got to go to the hospital for an operation again tomorrow morning. But
well.
It's a normal. Every 3 or 4 months I have to have some plumbing done. They go and knock me out, put a stent and take the old one out, and away we go.
Good wishes, mate. All the best for tomorrow, and see you soon.